Do you know what's better than one Cricket World Cup? Two! And in classic cricket style, the sport's outdoing itself in 2023 with a pinnacle event for both women's and men's teams. Kia ora Aotearoa, I'm Zoe George and this is the Podium Summer Series, sports news but not as you know it from Stuff. The Women's T20 World Cup is just around the corner, all the action starting in South Africa on February 11th. Australia have won the tournament 5 out of 7 times it's been played, and the White Ferns haven't made the final since 2010. Ouch. So is this the year to turn it all around? Stuff sports reporter and cricket fanatic Ian Anderson, welcome to the podium.
Morena, Zoe, how are you?
Oh, I love cricket. It's my happy place.
We have noticed.
Can the White Ferns win? What's their chances of success?
Winning is going to be tough. I think that top 4 has to be their target. As you say, it hasn't been achieved for quite a while for that side. And obviously it didn't happen at this year's One Day World Cup in New Zealand. But I think they're better placed after a really interesting 2022. There's been a fair few changes, obviously, since that One Day World Cup, both in playing personnel and in coaching. Obviously, they've got Ben Sawyer now in charge. I always want to call him Tom Sawyer. I think he should be coaching Finn Allen as well, too, and then I could write something decent. But, yeah, New Zealand are going to be a little bit underdone for this World Cup. It starts in South Africa in February. That rain-interrupted series against Bangladesh really didn't teach us a lot. And so they're going off a diet of Super Smash, which really isn't on the same level as the Big Bash League in Australia. And Australia have been playing India. England have been playing the West Indies. So, yeah, it hasn't been the ideal build-up towards that tournament.
Oh, I mean, it's been, if you look back to 2022, you know, obviously the One Day World Cup didn't really go our way, but it was so delightful to see them get up at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. You were there, and to see Sophie Devine, Captain Sophie Devine, she was crying happy tears though after that bronze medal match. I wonder if can they replicate it? Can they go one better?
Yeah, that was pretty important, I think, to bounce back from that disappointment of not making the top 4 in your home World Cup to winning bronze and pushing Australia in that semi-final as well too, and then convincingly beating it. What is still a pretty good English side in that format as well too, is promising signs. I also think that obviously the West Indies were a surprise top 4 side at this year's One Day World Cup, and as we've seen since, they've been very, very poor since, even at home. You'd be surprised to expect them to be in contention in South Africa. Obviously, the hosts will be better, though. I think South Africa are a team that have got 4 or 5 world-class players, and Ishmael and Karp and the likes. So they're going to be tough at home. And then, obviously, Australia and England are the 2 top seeds that you'd expect to make the final, if certainly not the top 4, and then throw India in the mix as well too. But if New Zealand can get into that top 4, then obviously you're in the knockout stage right away. And I think that must be the goal for them, and that's certainly achievable. You know, it's a side that has quite a nice balance now of youth and experience, with still based around Sophie Devine and Susie Bates and Amelia Kerr, and obviously Leah Tahuhu coming back strongly from not getting a contract. But then you've got the development of like the young spinners and Fran Jonas and Eden Carson, and they'll still be quite possibly a key over there too.
Australia have been incredibly dominant in this format, and also in the One Day as well. You know, they won the World Cup here in Christchurch. It was such a game against England. I was there. It was magnificent. So how can any team bring them down a peg, do you think?
Yeah, you've got to work your way through that batting lineup, I think. That's their key, and they showed that in that One Day final when Alyssa Healy set the tone right from the start and made a target that England did well to get close to. It was such a massive total that they scored there. Their power game is what New Zealand might struggle to match. You know, they've got players like Grace Harris, Ashley Gardner, who can hit the ball out of the park regularly and score at a really decent run rate. And England, the same too. England have likes of like the super talented young teen Alice Capsey as well too, who's a big power hitter. New Zealand, apart from Devine, really don't have those players. So they might have to find a way somehow to work through that and score runs in other fashion rather than blasting out of the park.
Well, I suppose we should also talk about the Black Caps because they have a World Cup as well in 2023, heading off to cricket mad India in July. Oh, is there any greater location for this tournament than India? It's going to be insane for sure.
Yeah, it's a big year for the Black Caps as well too. I mustn't go without mention too that we've got a Test series here against England, Baseball and all, in February, 2 tests at home in February. That's going to be a fantastic start to the home season. Obviously, they're away in Pakistan, and then ODIs against India and Pakistan as well too. But then you get the contrast of that Test series here with Baseball against Gary Stead and Steady the Ship. That's going to be a phenomenal start to the home season initially before the World Cup.
What do you think that the Black Caps need to do between now and the Cricket World Cup to kind of find their stride?
Well, I think you've slowly seen incremental changes coming in. Obviously, we've seen Martin Guptill left out of both the T20 and one-day squad, that Finn Allen has usurped him and is now the guy at the top of the order to go hard early. We've seen in the squad name this week, Henry Shipley, who's a pretty promising all-rounder from Canterbury in his mid-20s. So he's a guy who's had a fairly good grounding in the domestic game as well, and is basically Kyle Jamieson 2.0. He's about $1.96 tall, bowls quick with a steep bounce, hits a hard ball, hits a long ball as well too. And obviously you've still got Jamieson coming back from injury as well too. So Gary Stead and Gavin Larson are looking at that. Glenn Phillips will play a bigger role in that side as well too. He's developed into a world-class player over the last couple of years, and obviously didn't play in that 2019 team from that memorable or forgettable final, however you want to think about it. And then I suppose the really interesting question is how much are we going to see of Trent Boult? Obviously not going on the one days in Pakistan and India, doesn't have a contract, will pick and choose probably what he wants to play in terms of the franchise T20 competitions. But he surely still must be a want for that Black Cap side for this World Cup. A little bit of redemption personally, given what happened in that 2019 final in Lords, and obviously for the team too. Can
the Black Caps do it? Can they win?
Well, they've got so close, haven't they? 2019, you couldn't have got any closer. And then obviously they've shown since then that they're still a world-class team, making two late-stage appearances at the ODI World Cup. It's going to be tough still. You know, India will be the favourites at home. So much talent we saw when they came out here, even with their second-string side basically out here last month. Just how many gifts they have, both bowling and batting as well too. Australia obviously were a little bit disappointing in the T20 World Cup, but it's still a pretty useful one-day side. We've seen just how powerful their test team is, and their one-day side won't be that much different from it. England will be going in on a high, no doubt. Trying to convert their test game to one-day cricket won't be too difficult the way they play test cricket. It's going to be a fascinating tournament. It will be hard pushed for New Zealand to go from contenders to victors, but not impossible.
Top four? Same as the White Ferns, top four?
You'd have to think so, given New Zealand's record recently in international ICC tournaments at any format. They're just so consistent. They find a way to beat one of the top sides, and then they're so consistent they don't get upset by one of the minnows. That's one of their key things. I think they're the only sort of test play nation that hasn't really suffered a stunning loss in one of these ICC knockout tournaments to a lesser side. You combine that with a win over, they've had wins over India, Australia and the likes in those tournaments, enough to get them to the semi-final and put them in contention.
Well, it's going to be cricket galore for me, and so many other World Cups as well. We've got FIFA on in July as well here on home soil. We've got the Netball World Cup. It's like go, 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 sporting action. Ian Anderson, always wonderful having you on the podium. And that's it for this bonus summer episode of The Podium. I'm Zoe George, and on behalf of our guests this week, producer Jono Williams and Philippa Tolley, and audio editor Connor Scott, thanks for listening. You can get in touch with us now. Email thepodium@stuff.co.nz. Who's going to win the Cricket World Cups? We want to know. Make sure you like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts from so you never miss an episode. Until next time, ngā mihi, go well.
In May 2017, a Christchurch builder disappeared, almost without trace. No crime scene was ever found, no weapon was ever found, no body was ever found. In February 2023, David Charles Benbow went on trial. The prosecution said that, while based entirely on circumstantial evidence, its case was so comprehensive there could be no doubt Benbow was guilty. The defence said detectives were biased, working hard to build a case against Benbow after he was identified as a prime suspect. Stuff, New Zealand's home of true crime podcasts, presents The Trial. Hear the evidence, follow the twists and turns. Wait for the verdict.